Hey, it's Sandy Weiner. I am the founder of Last First Date. I am a dating and relationship coach for women over 40 who want to find epic love in the second half of life. And my co-host is Lisa Schmidt. Lisa, say hi.
Hi. Oops, crap. I hit a button there. Sorry. Hi, everybody. Not good. Not good.
So tell everybody who you are.
I am also a dating coach. I work mainly with men, more so than women. So I'm based in Detroit, Michigan. I work a lot here one-on-one with people, but I also work with people over Skype and phone. So I always get asked a lot, do I work with women? So yes, I absolutely will work with women if they're willing to put in the work, because at the end of the day, that's what we have to do is work on ourselves. But basically what I do is I help people from the from the bottom up. We work on everything from self-awareness to what your life satisfaction is and incorporate all of that into a whole package and a long-term plan that doesn't just get you out there like, in a first session, trying to pick up chicks like it's Night at the Roxbury. So I think that is a common misconception with people that work with men, that's all we do is we take you out and act as some kind of wing woman. And that's not the case, because that doesn't make you a good dater. That just makes you a guy who can probably get laid at 2:30.
Isn't that what every man wants?
Eventually, well, eventually they get out of that stage. And I find now, as my male clients get younger and younger, that millennials and men, even in their early 20s, they're really looking to get out of that hangout, Netflix and chill kind of scene that's going on right now.
Yeah, well, my son is 24, so he's a millennial. And he actually took a lot of time to study pickup artists to find out not how to manipulate women, but how to have more confidence and really understand women better so he could connect better. And so that's, I think, if you're a mindful guy, and I would say that majority of men are really good people. They're not just interested in sex, and women tend to have these ideas about men, and men have ideas about women. And one of the things that we love is to bridge that gap and to help people understand each other better so that we all become better people and then be better daters. So,
well, yeah. And you and I see it every day, even in your group, and I see it in my group, and just everywhere across the internet. There's always this Mars Venus conversation, and everyone's pointing a finger, and all men are this and all women are that. And it just simply isn't true. It really does come down to the fact that you need to understand yourself first. You need to understand a little bit of like the biology of both sides, and then learn about that person individually as well, and everything from how they give and receive love to what their emotional triggers are, what their issues could be in the areas of past relationships, and a million other things. So that is all part of bridging the gap as well.
Yeah, and it's so important to have this dialogue. In fact, I just got off the phone with someone who is hiring me to come down and spend a weekend in their synagogue and talk about dating and how to inform singles about how to better advocate for themselves, because I think that's a big part of the whole issue of dating. And anyway, let's get to the topic, because it's a juicy topic, and we could talk about so many things in relation to dating and relationships. And I just want to also say that you guys who are here, thank you all for coming today.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do have a Facebook group. Lisa's part of it, and it's called Your Last First Date. So if you go into Your Last First Date, is for women only, but we would love to have more members. We are there to give you good information, to provide a safe space for you to come, to talk about dating, to talk about relationships. And thanks for all the love I'm getting right here. Thank you. And so today's topic is how to balance being strong and feminine in dating. And what I have found is that the majority of women who come to me are very strong women in every aspect of their lives. And when it comes to dating, they often are overbearing, they are bossy, they're competitive, they forget to take off that strong masculine part of themselves that helps them to succeed at work. And what I really want to talk about today is that you don't dumb yourself down to date, but you do need to show up a little bit differently. And Anthony says, true. Thank you, Anthony.
Absolutely.
So it's a turnoff to show up with that fighting edge and with your guards up, which is often what happens. You come in and your guards are up and you're like, I dare you to, get through this wall. And men feel it, right, Anthony? men feel like they don't want to work that hard. That's just a big turnoff. So,
well, it's funny you say that, because I just put out a women's program. I'm in the process of building my men's program. And there's a huge focus on this, because the men that I've spoken to, they're like, I really need you to sort of delve into the difference between what's a really strong woman and what's a bitch, like knowing the difference, because it's a word that gets tossed around a lot. But the thing that I think women don't really understand is that men are raised to be competitive, and they continue to be competitive throughout their life, mainly in career as they get older. But they're competing against friends. If they start to own their own business, maybe they're competing against, competitors in that. So when you spend your day in constant competition, you don't want to come home and fight for the power in the relationship or the home. And I think, throughout the years, women have just been given the wrong message that there has to be some sort of power struggle. Like somebody has to wear the pants in the family. And I just, recently started dating somebody new myself, and he had posed the question to me, like, hey, do you normally wear the pants in the relationship? I said, I don't believe in that. I don't believe there's a power struggle. I believe that we are two people coming together with their 100% coming in, and I don't want to fight you for power. I want to be equals with you.
Yes. So I totally agree with the equal thing. I think it's a little hard to have full equality in a relationship, but I think the power issue is an important one. And I define it as powering with somebody and not powering over or under somebody. And I think the ideal relationship is where you check in with each other, where you have discussions about everything. There are things in a relationship that you don't want to do, and you talk about them. And if the other person is cool with that, taking over that part, then that's great. And so one of the things I see, and this is, again, this happens a lot with women that I have in my practice who had been married for decades, usually, to somebody who did not show up in their relationship. So as the relationship progressed, and this is pretty common, they say the guy did less and less and the woman did more and more. So the woman's overcompensating for things that the man did not do. So that comes from a number of things. It comes from, number one, sometimes choosing the wrong partner. It also comes from not communicating in a powerful way, and in a clear way. So I want to define clear communication. If you have something that's bothering you, and this is something that many people have trouble with, say what you mean and say it right away. Do not wait until the socks have piled up on the floor.
Yep.
3 weeks and you want to kill the person. So, the faster you say it and the more clear you say it, and without an edge, and that's where you get the bitchiness, is where you're so pissed off that by the time you say it in a bitchy manner. So thank you, Anthony.
Yeah.
That is true.
The problem, it goes way farther back into the beginning of the relationship, because we haven't said, this is our purpose as a couple. These are the things that we agree on. These are the things that are yours. These are the things that are mine. These are the things that we could maybe, attempt to do differently together. So without establishing what your shared purpose is, what the end goal is as a couple, all of the other stuff just kind of gets lost. And that's when you end up with hurt feelings and misunderstandings and all of the craziness that ensues from that, because we never sat down and said, everybody always says, like, I don't want to end up like my parents, or I don't want to be divorced again, or I don't want to be this. Well, you can't be that other side of the 50% if you don't put some work into it and actually build a better foundation from the beginning. Because a lot of times what happens is we just go in simply with the idea of being in love, and we just assume it's going to work itself out in the end. Well, problems don't go away. And after we've sort of established what that purpose is, what we also need to talk about is what's kind of excusable, and how do we define good behavior and bad behavior? If it's something that's not going to really break the relationship, if it's not something that is directly negatively impacting you or the relationship, why are we feeling the need to constantly make a big deal out of everything?
Right.
And this, for me, like, especially in the beginning, like, to explain that to people, and they're like, well, what do you mean good behavior, bad behavior? Well, if people are consistently ditching you and making excuses, that's bad behavior. You should address that. You shouldn't overlook it. If somebody makes an honest mistake and forgets, don't lose your mind and go crazy on someone.
Yes.
And yes, pretty baby said it right. Love is not enough. I tell people that all the when people say that, it makes me like want to lose my mind. Love is never enough.
Well,
it takes work.
Love is a great beginning.
Absolutely.
And then you need to nurture the relationship, and you need to be, we're grown-ups now, and we want to have relationships like grown-ups. So, something you just said, Lisa, and it's the word responsibility comes to mind. We need to take responsibility for our share in any relationship. So if you had a relationship that failed, it failed for many reasons, and you were part of it. And so if you can't take responsibility for staying, for choosing the partner, for your whatever it is, there are things you can learn. People get mad at me for saying this too, because they say, well, what about an emotionally abusive relationship? Well, you may not have had the skills to understand what emotional abuse was, or how abnormal that relationship was, or how bad it was for you. But walking away from it and having some distance, now you can try and figure out, how did you end up in this place, and how will you never do that again? So, but I want to redirect back to the strength of a woman and how she can show up in a relationship. So I want to give you an example of someone that I know who, she's very, very powerful businesswoman. She runs a big business, makes decisions all day, kind of like you and me, Lisa. We both run our own businesses, and we make tons of decisions. We're also single parents, and we're constantly making decisions for our children. And this woman is in an amazing relationship, and she comes home from a hard day of work. She does not want to make all the decisions at home. And she is very clear that I want you to make reservations. I want you to make plans for our vacation. I don't want to make decisions when I get home. I like when you rub my feet. I'm happy to cook you a meal. That works well for her. So she knows who she is in the home and who she is at work. And it's very, very different for her. And I think for me, she represents the strength of a woman who knows herself well, knows how to communicate what she wants, and is very clear with her significant other about how she wants to be and what she wants from him. And that's why this relationship works. I mean, she's been in other relationships where it did not work because she abdicated her needs for somebody else. So this is really what it's about. It's about know your needs, know your values, know what you feel, and know how to express it. And it's a dialogue. It's not just, here's who I am, take it or leave it.
But it's also about owning your weaknesses. Mm. So if she knows that she's so overscheduled and so busy at work that she's really just going to not be capable in that department of, say, planning the meal or taking the kids to soccer that week or planning the vacation, why would you add that extra responsibility when you are in a partnership? The whole idea of the partnership is there should be an ebb and flow. There should be some balance in responsibility. So it only makes sense to say, listen, here's what's on my plate. Here's what's on your plate. Where can we swap here? Where can you take a little bit of this? Where can I take a little bit of that? without having it end up being some knockdown, drag out fight and screaming at each other about, you didn't do this, I don't like the way you do that, and those sorts of things. And I find that's a really common argument among people, and where people do end up starting to cater to other people's needs above their own because they're in constant fear of this person not being happy enough, not being in love enough in the relationship. So they're going to do it in these other ways. And those other ways, they just don't work out in the end because they're not what that person really needs.
Yeah. So again, it's you've got to find what works for you, because every relationship is different. And if you're stressed out at work, then you should be taking care of your needs first and not bringing them home to your relationship. I have clients who, think that they have to be responsible for the man in their life and his emotions. And they're constantly worried about, I actually have a client who just suppressed all of her needs in a relationship, and it didn't work out. And she's a powerful, strong woman, but she twisted herself into a pretzel to make this relationship work. And at the end, you're going to fall apart. So you can't do that, men or women. We can't abdicate our needs for anybody. The best person to be in a relationship with is someone who takes care of themselves, who takes care of themselves first. And you're being a good role model for your children. If you have kids, when you take care of yourself, and you're also teaching everybody how to care for you. And this is something that I totally didn't understand until I got divorced. It sort of was my wake up call to A, take better care of myself, B, pay attention to what my needs were. I don't even think I knew what they were. I was always thinking I had to be the flexible one. And my children started to respect me so much more when I wasn't the gopher and I'm going to go to the dry cleaner for you. And then I'll be your chef and I'll be your everything. And now they know how to cook and how to clean and how to do everything for themselves. So they're going to be so much better as partners. So we're all modeling good behaviors for both partners and for our children.
Absolutely. And even me being single, and it's been quite some time since there's anybody that I have dated or been involved with that's actually met my son. But even when we're on our own, that's so important for me, for him to understand that too, that I'm his mom, but at the same time, I'm not your servant. Can I have a snack? Can I have this? Can I do that? Yeah, it's right there. You know where it's
yeah.
I can't, I don't have time to wait on you. You know what I mean? It's like, do you want to have this time with me, on Saturday, or do you want this or, that? So there's always a trade-off for that. So those 5 minutes that you just grab yourself a mac and cheese or whatever it might be, that's 5 minutes that I can focus on what I'm already doing. And then when I'm done, that frees up that 2, 3, 4 hours, whatever it is, or a day on the weekend. And, and I think it's important for him to understand too, or just children in general as role models, and especially being an entrepreneur. I think it's a little bit different because our hours are different. But to show them like there's work put into this, but I'm going to put work into the relationship with you. I'm going to put work into relationship with the dad, the partner, the whatever it is. But, there are things that have to come first sometimes.
Yeah. So, setting those limits is really super important, and also having clear boundaries. And so that's also a sign of strength, both for men and women, is knowing yourself well enough to set those boundaries, to say, I can't be with you now, but I can be with you at this time. Or that doesn't work for me. That's one of my favorite things to say. Learning to say no because you're saying yes to something bigger and more important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, these are some of the things that I teach my clients every day is just look at your plate. Look how full it is. You can't possibly give anything more. And so I remember in my marriage, I was often depleted. I just had nothing left to give. So a sign of strength of a person is somebody who takes care of themselves enough so that they are not depleted and they have so much more love to give. And it comes from a good place, not from a place of obligation, but a place of choice. And that's so key.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because sometimes in the beginning, when I find that clients, they're not really understanding what they have going on, one of the exercises I have them do is sort of like a wheel of life and a life satisfaction. So tell me what energy is going where, how often it's going here, and then tell me where you think it's unbalanced.
Yeah, the wheel of life.
Yeah, so you tell me, are you grateful for what you do have? Are you having fun in your life? Are you making time for family and friends? Or is this all, focused on work or focused on an education, whatever it might be? Because, when you start to, when you look at a pie graph and you see all the color in one area, that indicates, obviously, in any graph you would look at where a focus is. And if you have so much focus in one area, how do you tear yourself away from that?
So when I used to do the wheel of life with my clients, we had eight parts of the wheel, and I'm trying to remember all the pieces, but one is your work, one is your family, your friends, your exercise, health, and health and wellness, fun and recreation. I don't remember, but the fun and recreation was usually the one that had the least. Oh, and relationships. Relationships and fun and recreation were the ones that were like down at the bottom of like a 2 out of 10, and then everything else was higher. So even if everything's at a 5 and you're living it to, a level 5, and then you have some that are level 2, your wheel is bumpy. And so you want everything to be around the same level, and you want to keep always working up. So what I find with fun and recreation, and this is it's a little off topic, but I want to talk about it anyway for a second, is that people think you have to plan a big vacation to have fun. They think that, fun means going off and doing something that you spend a lot of money doing. And for me, fun is, you have to laugh every day. You have to be spending time with people who make you laugh hysterically. You need to be doing things that you enjoy. So for me, it means turn off the damn computer after dinner and don't keep going back, because, I work for myself, so I could be on that computer till midnight every night. But
I moved my computer for that reason.
From where? From your room?
Because I had it. No. The funny thing is I spend most of my time on the main living space of my condo. So I actually, right now we're sitting in my bedroom. I moved my computer up to my bedroom because I spend less time up here. So when I'm working, I'm forced to sit and work. I actually have to get up to go downstairs to get something to eat, or, to go into the living room if I want to sit down and, sort of be in the house, so plus too, it helps me keep more of a boundary on the computer for my son because he's not allowed in my bedroom.
Smart.
So even so, he would always have to ask to use the computer, but now he has to ask to use the computer and go in my bedroom. So
how many things?
But for me, when work is done, I spend most of my time on that main living space. So the computer was always there on that level. So I was like, I have to move it out of here.
Yeah. So it's getting out of your comfort zone. It's leaving the house. I mean, for single people, leaving the house is huge. Doing things like just going out for coffee instead of making it in your home. Just doing things that switch things up and making conversation with people, any people. Like you're sitting on a bus, talk to the person next to you.
You sound like me in the middle of a coaching session. I'm like, here are the ways you can actually meet people that you didn't know that you
leave
could.
the house.
Like, what do you mean?
I think there was a Saturday Night Live segment I think I just saw where Keenan talks about a new dating site. It's called Leave the House. LeaveTheHouse.com.
Get out.
Anyway, let's talk about femininity, because you and I have had these discussions before about what is feminine strength. And so, Lisa, why don't you go first and talk about what you think is feminine strength?
Well, I think, where there's a huge sort of divide out there with the information that women are hearing. So, some people confuse femininity with feminism, and some people confuse femininity with being weak. Like, I have to be girly, or like you were saying earlier, dumb it down or be something that I'm not. And it has nothing to do with either of those, really. Femininity is really just about re-examining like who you are at your core, the nature of you as a woman. I mean, it's just built into your DNA. You can't deny it. So, the way I explain it to women, they're like, how do I get in touch with that or get back in touch with that? It's like, well, what do you find like sexy about a woman? Now, you don't have to be a lesbian to look at another woman and say, I think breasts are beautiful or curves or whatever it is. But when you say like get dressed, what makes you feel sexy? What makes you feel feminine? Not your boobs hanging out, not your butt hanging out, but is it the way a certain shirt fits you? Is it that you like matching bra and underwear? Think about those things that are soft and sexy and, there's no edge to them really, right? And it means something a little bit different to men when you kind of look at it from that viewpoint too, because most women would assume that sexy to a man is, the woman that walks in the hooker heels and the short skirt and the low cut top. And that's not what is sexy. Sure, that would turn a guy on. That's probably flipping through a magazine or looking on the internet, but that's not who he wants to date. That's not who he wants to marry. So, but he wants somebody who is comfortable in her own skin. And that's if you're a size 2 or a size 22, it doesn't matter. It's about just embracing that natural essence of who you are as a woman, what you're born with, working with what God gave you, and being comfortable in that. Because when you're comfortable with who you are, whether you're a man or a woman, other people are comfortable around you. And to make somebody feel comfortable in your presence is the best thing that you can do.
I would say that's true for men too. I mean, I'm really attracted
Absolutely
to men who are comfortable being who they are and not trying to inauthentically be something that they're not. So that's a great one. The comfortable in your skin. And I love that you talk about it's not being a size 2. It's this is such a big issue for women who, especially, but I know men who also have image issues. But in my house, when I was married, my husband was the one who would stand in front of the mirror and look at his love handles and talk about them in a negative way. And I never did that in front of my kids. And I think so, like your body, like who you are. But I think also another aspect of femininity is the ability to allow and receive. And you and I have talked about that a little bit. I think that if you think about the body of a female, and you think about the mechanics, we are built to receive, and men are built to give, to plant seed. And so they're more of the builders and the doers, and we're more of the beers by nature. And so when you step more into that, we tend to do and do and do and do. And so that's a little bit about that, leaving that doing at work. And when you're getting to know a man, and especially in the beginning of dating, to be present and to receive and to say thank you when a man gives you a compliment, and to say thank you if he pays for a meal, and to allow, and not to say, hey, I got this. I can pay for my meal. I got this. Yeah, sure, you can pay for your meal. And something that John Gray said, the guy who wrote Mars and Venus, I was just listening to him on a summit that I'm part of called Engaged at Any Age. And he talked about the aspects of masculinity in the 21st century, where men don't have to be providers in the sense that they were decades ago or centuries ago, where men had to provide and men had to protect. We are in a stage of life right now where women can protect and provide as well. And so because we're able to do that, we're still looking to men to provide emotionally, maybe not monetarily, but definitely emotionally, to make us feel safe. And I think, for women, safety is huge. We are smaller than men generally, and we want to feel safe in the dating world. And so if a man can provide that feeling of safety, that's huge. And that makes a woman more fully into her femininity as well.
Well, and provide and protect is one of the most basic innate attraction triggers that you can actually trigger in a man to further connection with him. And like you were saying, like the thank yous and allowing him to hold the door, allowing him to pick up a check, allowing him to offer an opinion, actually asking him what he thinks about something, respecting the fact that he does have his own brain and his own thoughts and opinion, and allowing for the possibility that you can't handle everything. You don't know everything. And when you can, the main thing that when I deal with men, the first thing I tell men when they start to talk about these high horses that they put women on, I'm like, she's a human being. Until you learn to humanize them, you're going to have huge issues. So at the end of the day, that's, part of that allowing too. They're just another human being. So allow just another human being to do what they do. And sometimes people are just better at certain things than us. Then there's nothing wrong with admitting defeat or calling that a weakness, whatever you want to call it. There's nothing wrong with just giving in and saying, this is not my strong suit. What can you offer here?
True. And I think that if you want something from somebody else, first of all, you have to ask for it, but also you have to be willing to create the space for it. So if you're constantly showing up as the provider, as a woman, then don't get mad at men for not providing. And so a lot of times that happens out of fear. I'm afraid he won't provide, so I'm going to do it all. And then I'm going to get resentful because I'm doing it all. So it's a vicious cycle. So you got to stop.
And he gets mad because he's afraid. Yeah, and if he's afraid if he steps on your toes, you're going to get mad.
Yes, and it's emasculating.
So
it's actually emasculating for women to do the things that make men feel more masculine. I would love to hear from some of the men here, or some of the women. What do you think? And you can pose questions. We would love to hear from you. Because we can keep talking, but we really want to have this be more interactive. And if somebody wants to take a seat, we have an open seat here. It's always fun to get somebody else in the hot seat. So,
and I love especially to hear from men on this topic because no, I don't think, I think you're right, Anthony. I think a man who is truly secure wouldn't necessarily be emasculated by a successful woman. But when a woman, as Pretty Baby is saying here, is not a gracious receiver, right? So when she's not gracious and she constantly, beats that into him and it becomes something that's just said over and over, it's ad nauseum at this point, it can put chinks in the armor, and it can take a man who is quite secure and create some insecurity in him. And, I see this all the time. I get messages all the time on Facebook. I just got one yesterday about, she does this, and it's that push-pull thing that women do. And, it goes beyond being just a strong woman. At this point, she's playing hard to get in all the wrong ways. But then they'll go on to say, this happened with the last 3 to 4 women that I dated. Okay, well, let's back this up. This is not her problem anymore. This is your problem, because you're the common denominator. You haven't set a boundary. You haven't stuck to it. You've allowed somebody to walk all over you. And basically it was like he was going on and on about how she chose this crappy guy and, what was she thinking? And I'm like, she's not your problem. She's making bad choices. You have to stop rescuing damsels in distress. And on the opposite side of that, women, need to stop taking care of man babies.
Man babies. Yes. Well, yeah, the whole rescue thing. And again, we talked in the beginning about power. So when you're in a relationship with somebody that you're rescuing, you're actually powering over them, and you're forming a codependent relationship that's unhealthy. So if that's a pattern that you have, then you need to look within and say, what am I gaining from this? And why am I doing this? And I'm going to break this pattern and get help for it, because it's not a healthy relationship. It's never a good relationship. So yeah, this is so common though.
No, it is. And I see it constantly, and probably most of sort of like the unsolicited questions that I get through Facebook or email, it generally comes down to that. Like, there's this either sort of power struggle issue where someone's taking care of somebody more than the other in a relationship, or somebody just doesn't really have their stuff together. And what do I do? And because, a lot of times people, they become so enamored in the beginning that they hit this rough patch, but they don't realize they skipped over a bunch of red flags, and that rough patch was always there. Like, this person always didn't have their stuff together, but now it's becoming an issue because it's starting to impact your life. And, they want to know, what do I do for this person? How do I help them? You can't force this help upon someone. They have to realize that something is wrong here, and they have to want to do it for themselves. So you have to make the conscious choice here to either stay in the relationship and completely back off of that idea, or run fast and far. I mean, it's a simple choice. It's a hard choice to make. I understand when you're in the situation, but the solution really is that simple. That's part of having a boundary and not allowing people to infiltrate that safe space.
Yeah, and what you said about red flags is very true. So we tend to overlook red flags often when you get sexually involved too soon, and you become a little blinded by your bonding hormones, which make you a little stupid. And they make you fuzzy in the head. You can't really think logically once you think you're entwined and you're a soulmate, and oh my God. And somebody privately messaged me the other day and said they met somebody 3 weeks ago, felt their souls were entwined, and then he went back to his former girlfriend, and she never wants to date again. And I was, first of all, your souls are not entwined. You just met, and you're giving up dating forever based on a bad decision, of getting involved with somebody that you saw the red flag that he was just out of this relationship to the point where he was still entwined with his old soulmate, or whatever you want to call her. So yeah, we tend to see what we want to see until we're ready to make grown-up decisions about how we fall in love, first with our head. And as John Gray said in this interview, women fall in love with their head, then their heart, then their genitals. And so, it's a little bit different than men. And if you really do go through that process and you first think, do we have common values? Are we really compatible? Is this a person that I trust? Is this a person who has the same worldview as I do? And not, dismiss those big red flags that are flashing and flying in your face. Then you get to the next level of, then you see the little acts of kindness that a person does for you and you do for them. And that's how you bond. And then if you have sex and you're really bonded, you're in a much safer place to be bonding.
Well, and I think with women, when we start in our heads, I think that, again, there's some self-work that needs to happen there before we start dating, because we really have to look at what this checklist is. And I think we've talked about this before. When I have clients write out a checklist, it's like, okay, your first column is what's on your list. Your second column is, how do you equal that? Your third column is, who do I need to be to get this person? So, but we overlook a lot of things like, is this person like truly genuine, and are they empathetic? Do they have ethics? It's not just about, do we both like, wine tasting on the weekend? That's not a relationship. That is a common interest. And so I think people will often say like, well, we're compatible in so many ways. Okay, but are you really saying that these are just shared interests, or is this true compatibility? Like, they have purpose and goals, and you can trust that they're a good representation of this other half of the relationship out in the world away from you. Are they ethical? Do they have integrity? Would you, look to this person for sound advice? is this person going to share a purpose with, you down the road? Not just, are they good in bed? Do they look good? Because, pretty faces don't always raise good kids and instill values in your
No.
children, So, yeah, I mean, I think that in order to have success, and, I think both men and women have that whole checklist thing going on in the beginning. I think if we have that more in order, and we're more in order with who we are internally, then things just start out better. And we don't miss those red flags as much, because we start to see, like where somebody might excuse somebody who's rude to a stranger or rude to a server in a restaurant. There's no reason for that. I don't even care if you're having a bad day. This is a human being that's doing a job, that's bringing you your soup and salad. There's no reason, I like to know my server's name. I'm not that person that's doing this. Hey, 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 hey. I want to know your name, So, I look for things like that too.
So Pretty Baby said, the other person totally is a representation of you outside of the relationship. And
I tell people that all the time.
And congratulations, Stephen got engaged. Yeah.
Ooh, yay.
So, yes. And I think that, what you said about the list, that, and you're also saying it's good and bad. Yes. So a person is a representation. I mean, usually our list is really, it should be what we already have. If you're looking for somebody with high integrity, then you better have it. If you're looking for somebody who's kind, then you better be kind. All of those things are really important. And I love what you said about the wait staff. I once went out with a guy when people still had toll booths and there was no Easy Pass, and people had to actually go into a toll booth and, pass and talk to a person. He knew the name of every toll booth, every toll collector, and every parking lot attendant where he would park his car every day. And I was so impressed by that. That really drew me in to him as a person, as an ethical person. So yeah, these things, you can't make this stuff up. This is stuff that's real. It's true. And often, I think certainly when we date when we're younger, we tend to connect based on, we both like the same music. We both have crazy parents. It's a lot of the external stuff and it's not the internal stuff, right? So, and it's often, as I said on my last collab, that we connect on wounds. We connect on the stuff that's really the stuff that we're hurting, and not the positives. So we start out in dating, connecting on oh, woe is me. I had this horrible thing happen. Oh yeah, me too. Oh my God, we have so much in common. Well, we want to connect at the beginning on the positives, and on the things that are really good in our lives, and also how you see life, and your perspective on life, which is one of the things that I'm going to be speaking about when I go down to Baltimore as a scholar in residence is mindset. It's really how you see yourself and how you see dating, how you see the world matters more than just about anything else. And so if you have a positive mindset and you stop making assumptions about everybody and everything, and you ask questions and get curious, it will change your life. And the other day on my Your Last First Date page on my group and on Facebook, we were talking about catfishing, and a couple people had never heard the term. And one person asked if when a man has written on his preferences that he'll date a woman from, like, say, age 20 to 80, is that a robot or is he a scam artist? And I said, well, how about he didn't go in and change the preferences that are automatic on his dating profile? It's like you automatically are assuming that there's something really wrong with this guy. We don't know anything about him. What about the people who on their online dating profile says they'll date somebody from 3 feet to 7 feet? Is that really true? Or did he just forget to change the preferences? It's you can imagine anything, you can make up stuff. And I think we just have to stop making things up. Start asking questions.
Yeah, I call it assumption dating. Like I tell people all the time, you have to stop assumption dating. Like you have to don't think that they're just like the last person you
Oh my
dated,
God.
or they're gonna make the same mistakes. They're gonna cheat on you too. They're gonna lie to you too. And I see this all the time, and to me, it's really interesting because that same person will say like that they want somebody without baggage.
Right.
And they don't want somebody who's got all kinds of drama in their
Right.
life.
And they're bringing drama.
Okay.
Right.
I know. And I'm like, do you see that curb? Go drop your crap off on the curb where it belongs. Again, that goes back to the list. You want somebody that's got their life together. You want somebody that's got a mindset that's going to move you forward in a relationship. You have to have the same thing.
Right. Definitely be working on that. So I think.
Hi, zoom out view.
I think that what you just said about how people assume that the person's going to be just like the other person. It's basically when you assume that, you're going to find that you're going to end up dating all people who end up cheating on you because you're making these assumptions, and this is what you're
asking
that's
for.
What you attract. And so one of the things that I tell my clients, and this is something I learned from my friend Bobby Palmer, is that you look for contrary evidence. Don't look for evidence, look for contrary evidence. Let's see how this person is not going to be a cheater. Let's see how this person is not going to be a bad person, is not going to, treat me like the last person treated me. And that's what you're going to find is more people who are going to be kinder, who are going to be more like the people that you want to meet, because you're looking for that. So it's whatever you focus on is what you get.
Exactly. And you have to look at what somebody is, right? Not what they could potentially be, or not what they exactly are not, and if you just sort of meet people where they're at and sort of, you don't have to just accept the fact that they're not a nice person, but you do have to accept people for who they are on some level. And again, meet them where they're at. Obviously, if it's going to be such an issue that there's no compatibility, there's no way you could have a conversation with this person, that's not going to work. But at the same time, when we come into relationships or even just attempting to date with the mindset of, all men are cheaters, all men are jerks, or all women are crazy, all women cheat too, we're just projecting that. And it comes out in how we even just display our body language, how confident we look on the outside, how confident we look on the inside. Because your internal conversation is always going to show on the outside, whether you mean it to or not. You just can't control that. Your body language, it's kind of, your body's doing its own thing.
Hence the resting bitch face, right? People don't realize what they're, right?
It works for some people. Yeah, but it's about being, you have to be mindful of that too, and what your internal conversation is. And again, looking for that contrary evidence, like you're saying, it's look at what somebody is saying. Okay, so but we all can say anything, but what are their actions saying? What are their patterns from those actions saying? Like, I want you. Okay, so I want to be with you. Am I continuing to choose you? Am I continuing to make plans with you? Am I staying in contact with you? Am I not dipping out? Am I not withholding my attention or my time? So when I'm doing things that meet what I'm saying, there's a reason to circle around thinking that I'm being untruthful.
Mm-hmm.
And we had that incident that kind of popped up, what was it? I think maybe earlier in the week or over the weekend with one of the ladies in the group. 4th date, everything was going great. She was, perfectly happy, but she just got a little curious and Googled the guy. And then from what she found, made up a story in her head about what all of this meant, whatever it was she found, and then went to him and said, "Hey, I Googled you. This is what I think." And then he got mad and she was like, "Well, what did I do wrong?" And I'm like, "You're a grown up. Just ask him what you want to ask him. Don't, it's fine if you Google, but don't make up stories based on what you think you might have read. It's the internet. It's completely possible that it's false."
Right. To ask questions.
Yeah. Be a grown up.
Yeah. That's tough for a lot of people. It's interesting. You were talking about drama before and how, men are looking for drama-free women. That's kind of like a constant. You look online and you see a woman who's drama-free. And my daughter is 21. She just turned 21 and she's in college and she's in a sorority. And you can imagine the drama between dorm life and a sorority. And she's having particular issues with a roommate. So there's so much unsaid. And I'm trying to encourage her to just be blunt, just talk about stuff. And she goes, no, that's too much drama. I said, no, you have no idea how much more drama there is because you're not discussing stuff. So, I mean, it's hard. It's hard when you're 21. It's hard when you're 41. But it is so important to really speak your mind. So to me, to get back to the topic, it's really that strength to be able to clearly and concisely and kindly say what's on your mind, to stay connected, not to just, vomit out what you have to say and spit it at somebody's face and give a person a piece of your mind. This is really about connecting and trying to get closer. And in fact, when I teach communication courses, I talk about stating your intention right up front. So if your intention is to get closer, to get clarification, whatever it is, you start with that. I want to have this conversation with you because I want to get closer to you. Right now, I'm feeling a little distant. So you're setting up to win. You're setting up to get closer, not to distance yourself and not to just get something off your mind. And I think, there's a lot of strength in being that powerful woman, being that kind of woman who can show up and clearly and kindly express herself.
Well, what's interesting about that is a statement like that. Even if you were going to an argument, I think it's important to state the purpose of what you want the outcome to be as far as it being positive. At that juncture, you're showing a sign of respect for yourself.
Yep.
So you're communicating that these are my needs. This is what I need to find out. This is what I would like to accomplish in this conversation or this, however we're going to resolve this conflict, whatever it might be. So I'm stating that up front because that is what I need for myself. I'm not saying we need to talk.
Yeah.
And you are also showing respect for your partner by saying, these are my needs. This is what I would like to discuss with you. And I'm not coming at you with an ultimatum or a finger in your face to say, this is what you did wrong.
No.
And I think that's important to remember when we're wanting information from somebody. And I find this is really difficult for women in the beginning of relationships to sort of ask, like, where is this going? Or dealing with that first fight or understanding those kinds of things. This is about, having the conversation in a grown-up way and approaching it in a way that says, I'm considering your needs as well as my own.
Yes. And I want to add to that when you say it in the right way, the person will actually thank you and it will bring you closer. And I just had this happen to me about a week ago. I had a very tough conversation to have with somebody and I said what I had to say and that person thanked me at the end. Because it's a sign of caring about the other person enough to have a tough conversation instead of stuffing your emotions, instead of, holding it in and then imploding. Those are all signs of a healthy relationship. And so, all these things, even interrupting somebody on a date who's talking too much is a sign of caring because you're letting that person know that you want to have a conversation. You don't want to have a one-way dialogue. And often the person who you interrupted will thank you. Will say, wow, I was so nervous. I was talking too much.
Well, and sometimes they're talking that much out of, just feeling awkward or a nervousness. And they're trying to fill that void because they're afraid if they don't, then the conversation will completely die. And then they don't want to be the person on the opposite, end of the spectrum that was like a wet blanket on a date, so they tend to overcompensate without even realizing.
Right. So there's another case where people make assumptions, that person's talking too much because they're narcissistic or selfish or obnoxious. And I used to do that. I mean, years and years ago, before I became a dating coach, I would call these bobblehead dates where I would just be like, and I would want to kill the person and I'd walk away feeling pissed off instead of saying what I had to say, which is there anything you want to know about me?
And it was funny for me because I didn't discover until I started becoming a dating coach, the number one thing I would do on dates, if I wasn't interested, is I would completely take over the conversation. I would just be like, blah, 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 like because in my head somewhere I already knew, I don't care what you have to say. I'm not interested in seeing you again. So I was like, I'm just going to talk.
Well, speaking of that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something that I used to do, was because I like to help people, I would find myself becoming that person's therapist. And we talked a little before about taking care of the person you're with. So and then I would get pissed off. Like, I don't want to take care of them. But I would be the problem solver. I know the answer to this problem. Here it is. Well, I had to learn to stop it, because I don't want to be that person. I do that at work, and that's what people hire me for. But I don't want to be that in a relationship. I don't want to be the therapist, the mommy, the caretaker. I want to have an equal relationship. So be aware of the messages that you're giving out, and switch things up so that you get different results.
Yeah. And, I find that it's difficult doing what we do for a living, because I used to sort of not tell people what I did right away. I would always just say, oh, I'm a life coach.
That's what I say.
Because I specifically coach men. So I would, and even now still a little bit, I think people expect that I'm kind of analyzing their behavior. And I'll even get, because I'm, after a date, whether I've had, an inclination whether I want to see this person again or not, I always say thank you for lunch, for coffee, for dinner, whatever it was. And almost every time I'll get like, well, how did I do? How would you rate me? And I'm like, listen, if I had to sit back and think about it, like with a work brain, I probably could, but I don't bring my work brain on a date.
Yeah.
I'm interested in getting to know you. And there's certain things that I might notice about body language, or, maybe a certain level of awkwardness or something like that. But I don't go in with that work brain to sort of pick apart what they're doing, because that just defeats the purpose of dating. I might as well just, say like, here, call me when you have money to pay me.
Right. Well, that, kind of wraps it back up to the beginning conversation, which I think, when you separate out who you are at work, because in a field like ours, it is hard when you're dating, to separate out being a dating coach and being a date. And so I do say that I'm a life coach, because I don't want men to feel like I'm analyzing their dating. And I am showing up as a woman on a date. I'm not showing up as a person who's there to coach them. And I don't want to coach them. I'm also vulnerable. I make mistakes. I am just like any other woman in that realm, but we're smarter. We are smarter daters. And I think that we're all capable of being smarter daters, if we just take the time to, to learn the essentials of how to be better at dating, how to be better at life, because it's all connected, and to balance the strength of who you are, and really, show up as the woman that you want to be, to get the results that you want in your dating life.
Yeah. And, and I like to tell people, you have to think of yourself as a computer, and what's your operating system. Like, if you think of yourself right now, you're on a 1.0 operating system. If you were going to upgrade to a 2.0, there's extras involved, right? There's better things. There's faster speeds. There's more memory. There's more this. So if you're going to upgrade yourself, you have to upgrade that processor, which is your mindset, your brain, how you, look at things, what that view is, what the purpose is. So, it's definitely about continuing to work on yourself. Absolutely. And making the choice. Sorry, I had a call come in. And making the choice.
You were like frozen.
Yeah. And you have to make the choice to do that every day.
Yeah, I agree. And then, speaking about operating system, just one final thought about that is that I think we have to know what our operating system is, so that we can communicate that and teach people how to treat us. And because people cannot read our minds, and that's another sign of the strength of a woman or a man, is I'm dark. Do you see me as dark?
I see you perfectly fine.
Sorry, zoom out view, but I could see me. Anyway, but it's really about, you know yourself, and you can talk about the things that you need because you then know how you operate. So I have women actually create an operating manual for themselves, like, how do you operate, so that you can let men know, so say you're an introvert and you need a lot of private time and quiet time. So I had a client who went on a weekend away with a boyfriend, and she said she was a little nervous. And I said, just sit down with him and say, at some point I'm going to need some quiet time. So I'm just going to let you know that I'm going to need to go back to the room and take some time for myself. And what about you? What do you think you're going to need? So, you just got to talk about stuff, and that just makes for better relationships. So,
Absolutely. And if we don't know those things about each other, then down the road, in a situation like that, she could come across as being distant or pulling away, or
exactly.
maybe, he's like, well, what is she up to all this time? And she's not really around, so don't make people guess, take the guesswork out of it for people. That's what I tell people all the time, especially in the beginning, instead of making people come to you and be frustrated that they're not getting answers or the progression isn't there that they'd like to see happening in a relationship, just cut that off right at the pass and offer that information. So when you are, and I'm not talking about the first week or two of dating, you don't want to come across as like, psycho and I'm stalking you, but as you start to progress into the relationships and now you're 1 month, 2 months in, these conversations need to be happening more regularly to understand how the other person does operate.
Yeah. I mean, I have them right away. I have them on a first date. I will say things like, I'm an on-time person. Are you an on-time person? Because I want to know if that person's going to show up at the place on time. It's just, letting a person know. And then you get to decide what to do with that information. It's not being pushy. Yeah. It's just, this is who I am. I like hiking. I'm a fast hiker. How about you? I mean, just put it out there. Anyway,
it's funny. Yeah, because I have a date tonight, and the last date that we had, I actually went into the restaurant first. It was raining, and I had been out running errands, and I just wanted to get inside where it was warm. So for this date that we have going up, he's like, "You're not going to sit at a table and make me look for you again, are you?" And I was like, "Well, if it's cold, is it cool if I just like go in and stand inside the door?" He's like, "Just wait in the car." And I'm like, okay, waiting in the car it is, so we can walk in together if that makes you feel better.
Right. So he's uncomfortable. He's letting you know, which is good.
I know. I was like, hey, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter where I stand. We're still going to the same place.
Yeah. So that's a great conversation. You find out that he's a little uncomfortable with walking and trying to find you, and no big deal. Yeah. So this is all great. And I want to just wrap it up. So I want to give a shout out again to my Facebook group for any women who want to join. It is a fabulous place to get support, to get answers to your dating questions. It's called Your Last First Date. It's my group, but Lisa's a member and she likes to chime in and give great advice. And so we'd love to have you. And also my website is lastfirstdate.com. Please stop by. I have tons of blog posts. I think I have about 580 blog posts up. I have many programs and ways to work with people, including group coaching. And I would love to support you if you would like, or you can sign up for my free guide on how to overcome the top 3 mistakes that midlife daters make, so you can find love. And Lisa, you want to tell people how to find you?
You can find me at DetroitDateCoach.com. You can sign up there. I have a authentic dating guide. So everything from online dating to what we talked about earlier, how to change up your routine, all those kinds of things approaching. Also on Facebook, I have 2 separate groups, one for men, one for women. So you can just follow facebook.com/the Lisa Schmidt and find access to those 2 groups.
Awesome. Well, thanks all for joining us at our blab today, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.